So, welcome to Beauty of Colors podcast, Toma. It's great to have you on the show.
I love being here. I love your show.
Well, thank you. So, Toma, tell the listeners about you and what drove you in creating this social media app.
Yeah, well, Felt is a social app, but it's only for your real friends and it's only in the real world. And what we do is we let you create and then we mail for you these cool personal photo cards. They look like this. If you can see if you're on YouTube or one of these other channels, you can see what I'm holding up. You get to pick a photo off your phone. And the thing that makes Felt different, there's a lot of apps that will print and mail photos for you, but we let you handwrite using your stylus or a finger. And we actually let you doodle, draw, and create a very personalized note just for one person or up to 5 at a time. And then we take care of printing and mailing it for you. And the reason we're doing this is because, we know as spiritual beings that we're all actually connected to each other. You can't break these connections. We're all made out of energy. But the vitality of the energy in the connection can sometimes be lacking, right? Especially in our kind of consumer-driven consumption world where we think that all we need to do is get the next endorphin by purchasing something for ourselves. That's something that I commonly experience, so I can share that. What I also know is that my mental health is driven up when I feel more connected to my friends and family, the people that matter most to me. And there is something so special about receiving a handwritten note from a friend, knowing that it came in a special way through the real mail and not over digital. And why? Why is it so important to put stuff in the real world? It's because everything goes on digital today, right? So you might get a very sentimental text message or an email and it feels amazing, but then bam, a notification pops up, or boom, you're on your Instagram feed, entertained by all the cool things happening there. So we say that social or digital goes miles and miles wide, but only an inch deep. So for those special messages, there's Felt. You can go on Felt, takes a few minutes, you make something, and then it shows up in the real world via somebody's mailbox, and they feel that amazing feeling of being important to you. So that's why we did what we did.
Okay. So it's like old school. It's kind of like old school, but it's a step up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think of it as it's a big step up, but I think of it as a very small step up. Why is that? I grew up not doing greeting cards. My parents didn't ever, have that tradition of birthday cards or thank you cards, but I grew up passing notes in school.
Mhm.
I would spend time, just handwriting a wonderful letter to a friend and then, passing it to them. And I loved that bond that I had with my best friends. And so when I started Felt, I didn't want to infringe on the authentic touch that is your own handwriting. And so all I wanted to do was be able to get the darn thing to my friend who lived across the country without having to go to the post office. I didn't know, stamps. None of that stuff was important to me. What was important is that my friend knew that they were super special and they got to hold and keep something that I handwrote. So when you handwrite something on Felt, we print and mail it just like it looks on your screen. We don't interpret it. There's no AI in it. It is authentically your penmanship.
So did you get a chance to pitch this to Shark Tank? How did you get on Shark Tank?
Yeah, Shark Tank was a really wonderful experience. So I tried to get on Shark Tank 3 years in a row. My first 2 years, I got denied. And here's the special, I would say, insight that I can share with anybody who's into the show and how do people get on this show? And if I have an idea, how do I get on it? Well, here's what I did wrong. What I did wrong was just rely on my product. I thought we had a great product. Handwritten cards from a phone, like that's special. And so I would make a video just like this with me saying, let me tell you what I invented. Handwritten cards from a phone. How cool is it? Deny, deny. I was like, wow, they really don't think it's special. Then some turbulence happened in my life. And here's the real deep insight, actually, for me personally. What I began to do in those first 3 years of Felt is I relied on other people to make Felt what I was afraid to do on my own. So I knew the idea was special. And I had a lot of excitement around getting out here, just like I am today, and talking about it. But I never did it because I felt like I actually wasn't supposed to. I felt like Felt was such a beautiful idea. It had to have an ad agency, it had to have brilliant marketers, it had to have people better than me. And so that's what I did my first 3 years. I had great partners. They were awesome. They loved the brand and they did the best they could, but ultimately it wasn't taking off. Mm-hmm. And then they had to go we had to part ways with them. You know, they had to go do their own thing, and it left me alone without people to rely on per se. But really, instead of the word rely, without people to hide behind. That's really the truth. So then I was on my own. I was like, well, I got to get on Shark Tank. Because it was basically, credit card bills were racking up. We were doing it all on our own dime back then. And then I said, an interesting thing happened to me. When I had nobody to hide behind, and I got through and over the anxiety of being left alone in a way, I had this moment of clarity. I was sitting on my couch and I said, I have to get on Shark Tank. And I had this, when ideas come to us, I believe it's our frequency that aligns us with ideas. And so my frequency was of a certain state of empowerment. And I don't mean like willpower. I wasn't willing myself forward. I had accepted the fear. I had, surrendered into the moment, right? And there was a sense of tranquility and peace that overcame me. And then I had this idea, which was, I have to make either entertainment or drama. This is TV. Shark Tank is not about the validity of a product. It's about entertainment. And what entertains us? Make people laugh or make people cry, right? Make people feel something. And I swear to you, it was almost a channeled writing experience where the script, the idea for this video flowed through me. And it started with me just pitching the show like I always had. But then it cut to me in a wedding dress. And I had long hair and I have a hairy chest. And I found I didn't find it actually, more wonderness of the story. This person who owned a consignment store in town, I called the consignment store. She picks up my hand, I'm looking for a wedding dress. She's like, well, I've got some things. I'm like, well, I'm a guy. I'm looking for a pretty big one, right, for me. And I want it to be gaudy, right? I want it to be I want it to be eccentric and fun. Mm-hmm. And she's like, well, I'm driving through a small town in Colorado. I think they have a consignment store. I'll stop in and see if they have, because I've got nothing. Mm-hmm. She finds the perfect wedding dress in this random tiny podunk small town Colorado. She calls me 5 minutes later. She's like, you'll never guess what I have. I found the perfect dress, I think, for you. I come, I put it on, it fits, and I shoot a video, an application video was hilarious. It was me, bam, I cut to me with long hair, hairy chest. I'm like, brides need, Felt, right? We're stuck behind boxes of cards and we have to schlep them to our honeymoon to get our thank you cards out on time. It'd be great to do it all from my phone. So ultimately I got on Shark Tank because really it was a process for me as a human being of transformation. Mm-hmm. Right. That's the real thing that is behind my story of Shark Tank. And ultimately I didn't have to go on the show in a wedding dress, mm-hmm, because the executive producers didn't want somebody coming on in any sort of cross-dressing manner. Back then, the Caitlyn Jenner drama was happening. Mm-hmm. And so they wanted to distance themselves from that. But they called me at one point. They were like, we're sorry. Mm-hmm. This isn't, we don't, the executive producer said no. And I was like, well, that's fine. I knew Shark Tank wasn't really going to happen. It was too magical of an experience. And I knew at one point it was just going to not go through. They're like, no. We still want you on the show. Mm-hmm. Just in normal clothes. Is that okay? And I was like, yeah, of course that's okay. So I got on Shark Tank in normal clothes, and it was a wonderful experience. And it took Felt from an app that few people knew about but loved, to an app that hundreds of thousands of people knew about and we're using. So it was great.
That's nice. So where can the listeners get your app? Where is it available?
It's available on the app stores. So if you have iPhone or Android, you can download it. It's Felt, simply put, Felt. And you can create a card, and then we'll print and mail it for you within 24 hours.
Wow, sounds good. So what did you learn, Toma, from the process that when you let go of the company that you had, the people you were hiding before and behind, you let go of them and you stepped into the space and you said that you're taking control. How is that process?
Yeah, it was a process of surrender. So the concept of surrender is, we're taught to will ourselves in our culture, right? The strong survive, determination, all these things. And in my life, the number one path through sort of exhaustive, stressful situations is one of surrender. What does surrender look like? The closest word is allowing, right? Instead of willing what I want, what I think should be happening, I allow what is happening. And I have a positive stance, which is what is happening, I'm going to surrender into. And surrendering is an act of acceptance. And accepting what is basically being in alignment with the energy that is everything. Right? Instead of fighting against it and being in a negative state, saying, oh, this isn't what's supposed to be happening. Right? It's not what's supposed to be happening. That's a willful state. Oh, I know, because then it's implying that I know what should happen. And anything other than that is wrong. And then it triggers a state of shame and worthlessness. Because if something's happening that should not be happening, what does it say about me? I'm not worthy of what I know should be happening, right? And that is a negative state. So when you allow, you go deep inside, and really it's an act of self-worth. Because what you're saying to yourself is, I am perfect regardless of what's happening. Anything can happen, and I will allow it to happen because I am not what is happening. I am this ball of energy that comes from all the energy, and all the energy is love. Thus, I'm love, right? So it can snowball into this wonderful interrelationship with yourself, to allow things to happen, to accept what is happening, and ultimately that in that moment with my team having to move on and me being basically out from behind them, right? I did not ask them to leave. I would have been perfectly happy, right? Miserably happy if the company was taking off and I could just stay in the background. Miserably happy. I would have been completely unfulfilled. And obviously the energy that is everything was not going to stand for that, right? This felt in a large way is my own, what's the right word? My own,
baby.
It's my own baby, but and as children, right? Children are teachers to our parents, right? So felt has been a profound teacher to me, and it has been the impetus of my own transformation from someone who's very fearful and stressed and anxious about what is happening versus what's supposed to be happening, and how that reflects onto my own self-worth, my own worthiness to exist, even into a person who practices allowance, because felt all the time, revenues up, revenues down, doesn't matter. I have this saying that is, worthlessness is unconditional. Means I've experienced both sides of this. Felt has been on a rocket ship path, and I'm like, great, fantastic. And 10 seconds later, I'm like, I am not the right person for this. I should not be here. I will just, blah, 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 blah. And it's a state of worthlessness. Worthlessness is unconditional. What does that mean, though? It also means there's nothing to do. There's nothing. I could push felt to the nth degree. I could will, and I will still feel worthless. It's unconditional. And that creates for me internal freedom. And freedom is love. So when I say felt unconditional, what it really is I'm unlocking the jail cell that I can find myself within, which is a doer's jail cell. I must do, I must accomplish, I must achieve to be worthy. When I know that accomplishing and achieving is actually pointless in a sense because worthlessness is unconditional, what I'm really saying is I don't have to do anything, right? And that instantly is the energy of love. And then I feel better because I'm more in alignment with the truth, right? That we're all part of the internal energy of love. So worthlessness is unconditional. Nothing you can do, nothing you can achieve, you can still feel worthless. So doesn't it's in the last thing I'll just say about that, worthlessness and love are actually the same coin, right? It's just which side you have, which side is facing up. But when you see them as the same coin, it untangles, right? So much of the achievement driven mindset. To get out of a state of worthlessness, you must achieve. That is a trap, right? So that's the message behind that. Don't need to achieve.
So you said that with the app, when the person does get the app and they do their writing and stuff on the cards, do you guys mail it to anywhere in the world, or is it only in the US that you mail it to?
In the US, postage is included. You can go anywhere in the United States. So the price includes postage. And then for another $1.50, we'll mail it anywhere in the world. We also have FedEx linked in. So you can actually FedEx a card if you want to. If you're late to an important birthday and you want that card to show up next day, you can FedEx it. We also have gifts. So if you want to include a bundle of English hang-dried lavender with your card, we actually pack and mail everything together in our warehouse. So we'll take your card, we'll wrap the hang-dried lavender, for example, and everything comes together in the same box. We have bath bombs, we have ground coffee, sorry, not ground, whole bean coffee. We have candles. We have a lot of wonderful gifts that you can also send with felt.
So I want to know, Tomo, which Shark Tank did the deal go down with? Which one did you get?
Mr. Wonderful. And I share his haircut. Yeah, Mr. Wonderful was building kind of a wedding platform. He had a couple of different brands that fit into the wedding space. And so he ultimately did a deal with us. And my strategy was not to negotiate. I did not want to be that entrepreneur who's on Shark Tank, who's haggling tech startup with an overblown ego. I want it to be a sweetheart episode. Again, this goes back to I'm making TV, right? What type of field do I want people to have about felt, about that episode? So I didn't negotiate. I mean, I negotiated very little. It was a very seamless process, but it started with how much did I value the company? So I actually had investors who were ready to put money into the business at double the valuation than I offered it to Shark Tank. So when I went on the show, I told my investors, hey, I want to make a really sweetheart episode. I want people around the world to just love felt. So I don't want to haggle, and I don't want to be painted as some like overblown egoic tech star or tech entrepreneur. So I said, I'd like to cut the valuation by half just for Shark Tank. And they were like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Go do it. So we cut it in half. And, Kevin O'Leary was just like, this is great. I love it. I'm in. And within 30 seconds, the negotiations were over. And I was really happy about that.
That's nice. He's such a great guy. So tell the listeners a little bit about your website. You do have a website. Do you have any speaking engagements coming up, Tomo?
Yeah, we have a website. It's feltapp.com, like an app you download. And felt is just like the material, FELT. Yep. And I am working on my own podcast where I share the daily ups and downs, in and outs, and how I weave in spirituality and mental health into my life, and how I ride the wave of entrepreneurialism, where I'm trying to bring back a age-old tradition, and I'm trying to also stand for being in service to one another, right? Because sending a handwritten card is really being an act of service. It takes your time, and it's not for you. When you're done making a felt card, you don't feel like you just had an endorphin rush. You kind of feel like, I got the connection vibes because you were in a thoughtful state of mind, which is peaceful and resting. But when you're done, you're waiting for your friend to get it. But here's something amazing that we started doing. I'm just going to cover up this address so you can't see it. But on our envelopes, we started putting a QR code, and it says scan to send one back for free. Mm. And what we're starting to try to create is a back and forth behavior where you're sending cards out, you're being a thoughtful individual, you're making other people feel really special and important to you, and then they can do the same back. And that is this like tying of a knot between two people, right? It's weaving that connection into a strong piece of cable. And when we try to get through difficult times, when we need to lean on our best friends are always there for one another. So I'm not gonna tell you got to use felt in order to have great friend. No, you don't. But what you get is almost like a stronger platform to stand on. That's been my experience using felt, is that because I know that I'm putting energy into these relationships, because I know that my best friends know they matter to me, because they're getting cards in the mail from me. Who sends cards in the mail anymore? Who takes the time to do? Nobody, right? So and it is a practical way to create that sense of security in our lives, where the only thing that really can create security is relationships. Because when times get hard, you got to lean on the people, not the money, the people, right? People can do everything. There's part of a wonderful form of abundance is the gifts that people give to one another, right? You can be in abundance because of the nature of the energy that you surround yourself with, the relationships that you surround yourself with. And I can speak to that, So we're trying to create that back and forthness, because that's a true form of mental health and mental stability that are really important.
Hey, sounds good. Well said. Do you have any last words for the listeners on overcoming fear and just going out and just doing it?
Obviously, download Felt. It'll take care of all your problems. Send cards back and forth, strengthen relationships, and feel like a wonderful human being. And be a seeker. That's worked for me. Just seek. Seek and you shall find whatever you need to find. We're all individual reflections of the it all be all. So nothing is prescriptive. But seeking is a wonderful place to go through life as a seeker. You'll find, I think, whatever it is that you are looking for.
Thank you so much, Toma, for being on Beauty of Colors podcast.
Thanks for having me. I love your show.